The smell hit me first, lemon polish, mixed with the faint metallic tang of expensive cologne that had seeped into every corner of the penthouse. My knees ached as I scrubbed the marble floor of the entrance hall, the kind of ache that settled deep into bone after 12-hour shifts 6 days a week. The afternoon light slanted through floor-to-ceiling windows, turning the white stone beneath my hands into something that looked like it belonged in a palace. Not a place where someone like me spent her days invisible. I was always invisible here. 23 years old, and I'd become a ghost in my own life. The other staff. Marco, the head of security with his permanent scowl. Teresa, the cook who barely looked at me. Even David, the driver who at least nodded when we passed. They all moved through this space like they belonged to it. But I was temporary. Replaceable. A girl from the South Side who'd taken the first job that would pay enough to cover my mother's medical bills and keep the lights on in our crumbling apartment. My hands were red and raw as I wrung out the cloth, watching dirty water spiral down the drain of my bucket. The motion was meditative now, almost calming. Scrub, rinse, repeat. Don't think about the past. Don't think about the future. Just exist in this moment, in this endless present where nothing could hurt me if I didn't let it. The elevator chimed. My heart lurched the way it always did when that sound cut through the silence. I kept my head down, my shoulders hunched, making myself smaller. Invisible. Footsteps. Not the sharp click of Teresa's heels or Marco's heavy boots. These were different, measured, deliberate, the kind of footsteps that didn't hurry because they didn't have to. The world waited for them. I smelled him before I saw him, tobacco and cedar, something dark and expensive that made the air feel heavier. My pulse quickened traitorously. Miss Chen. His voice was like smoke, soft, dangerous. The kind of quiet that made you lean in even when every instinct screamed to run. I'd been working in Dante Moretti's penthouse for 3 months, and he'd spoken directly to me exactly 4 times. Each time, I'd felt pinned beneath that gaze like a butterfly on a collector's board. I looked up slowly, careful to keep my expression neutral. He stood 15 feet away, hands in the pockets of a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my yearly salary. Tall, 6'2", maybe 6'3", with dark hair swept back from a face that would have been handsome if it weren't so cold. Sharp jawline, dark eyes that missed nothing, a mouth that rarely smiled. He was 36, according to the whispers I'd heard from Teresa. Young to have built the kind of empire that kept men like Marco loyal and politicians on speed dial. Behind him, 2 men in black suits flanked the elevator. Always. Never fewer than 2, never more than 5. I'd learned to count them without looking directly, the way prey learns to track predators in the periphery. Sir? I kept my voice steady, small. The East Wing study. I need it prepared for a meeting tonight. 8 o'clock. Yes, sir. His gaze held mine for a breath longer than necessary, and I felt something coil tight in my stomach. Not fear exactly, though there was that too. Something else. Something I refused to name. Then he was moving past me, his men following like shadows, and I could breathe again. I'd heard the stories, of course. Everyone in this part of Chicago knew the name Moretti. Money laundering, extortion, connections that stretched from the docks to the mayor's office. But in 3 months, I'd never seen anything that confirmed those whispers. Just a man who lived alone in a penthouse fortress, who worked until midnight most nights, who looked at me sometimes like he was trying to solve an equation that didn't have an answer. I finished the floors, my mind already cataloging what needed to be done in the East Wing. Dust the shelves, polish the desk, check the bar for his preferred scotch, make everything perfect so he wouldn't notice me at all. That was the key to survival here. Be excellent, be invisible, collect the paycheck, go home. The study smelled like leather and old books, a masculine space with dark wood paneling and a view that overlooked the glittering chaos of the city below. I moved through it mechanically, muscle memory guiding my hands as I worked. Dust, polish, arrange, everything in its place. On his desk, I noticed a folder left open. I shouldn't have looked. I knew better. But my eyes caught on a photograph clipped to the inside. A young man, maybe 19 or 20, with dark eyes and a familiar jawline. The resemblance to Dante was striking. I looked away quickly. guilt flooding through me. Not my business. Never my business. By 7:30, the study was immaculate. I slipped out through the service entrance, took the staff elevator down to the ground floor, and stepped out into the Chicago evening that hit like a wall of sound after the muffled silence of the penthouse. My bus didn't come for another 20 minutes. I stood at the stop, exhaustion settling over me like a heavy blanket, and tried not to think about the bills waiting at home, my mother's latest hospital appointment, the rent that was due in 5 days. "Miss?" I turned, startled. A boy, no, a teenager, maybe 16 or 17, stood a few feet away. He was thin, too thin, wearing a jacket that had seen better years and jeans torn at the knees. His face was dirty, but his eyes were clear, almost painfully earnest. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "I haven't eaten in 2 days. Do you have anything? $1, maybe? I'm not trying to... Something in his face broke my heart. Maybe it was the way he couldn't quite meet my eyes, shame and hunger warring in his expression. Maybe it was the memory of my own mother, years ago, too proud to ask for help even when we had nothing. I opened my purse. I had $7, enough for the bus, and maybe a coffee tomorrow morning. I pulled out 5 and pressed them into his hand. "There's a diner 2 blocks that way," I said, pointing. "Tell them Emma sent you. They'll give you something hot." His eyes widened. Thank you. God, thank you so much." He swayed suddenly, and I realized with a jolt that he wasn't just hungry. He was sick, or exhausted, or both. His skin had a grayish pallor, his hands trembling as he clutched the bills. "Are you okay?" I reached out instinctively, gripping his arm to steady him. "Yeah, dizzy." He stumbled, and I caught him, his weight pressing against my shoulder as I tried to keep him upright. My heart pounded. He needed a hospital, or at least somewhere warm, somewhere safe. A car door slammed. I looked up, still supporting the boy's weight, and my blood turned to ice. A black SUV sat at the curb, engine running, and Dante Moretti was striding toward us with an expression I'd never seen before. Raw, dangerous, something almost feral flickering behind those dark eyes. Behind him, Marco and 2 other men moved with predatory efficiency, hands inside their jackets where I knew they kept their weapons. "Step away from him." Dante's voice was lethal, quiet. He needs help." My words came out strangled. Dante reached us in 3 strides, and his hand closed around my wrist. Not rough, but firm, unmovable, pulling me away from the boy. The teenager stumbled but caught himself, confusion and fear flooding his face as the other men surrounded him. "Get in the car, Emma." Dante's eyes never left the boy, his grip on my wrist tightening fractionally. "What? No, he didn't do anything. Now." It wasn't a request. It was a command wrapped in silk, but steel underneath. I felt trapped between them. This boy who needed help, and this man who terrified me in ways I didn't understand. "Please," I whispered, looking up at Dante's face. "He's just hungry. He's sick." Something shifted in his expression as his gaze finally dropped to mine. His jaw tightened, a muscle ticking beneath the skin. "You don't know what you've done. I don't understand. Marco." He spoke without looking away from me. "Take the boy. Find out who sent him." "No one sent me." The teenager's voice cracked with panic. "I swear, please," I said again, and I hated how my voice shook. "He's telling the truth. I can see it." Dante's thumb brushed against the inside of my wrist, and I felt my pulse jump beneath his touch. His eyes darkened. "You're too soft for this world, Emma Chen. Too soft, and too stupid." The words should have stung, but they were said with something almost like wonder, as if he couldn't quite believe I existed. "Get her in the car," he told Marco. "I'll handle this." And as Marco's hand closed around my other arm, as I was pulled toward the SUV while the teenager shouted protests behind me, I realized with creeping horror that I'd just made a terrible mistake. I just didn't know why yet. The interior of the SUV smelled like leather and gun oil. I sat rigid in the back seat, Marco beside me like a wall of muscle and warning, while another guard drove in silence. Through the tinted windows, I watched Dante still standing with the boy. His posture deceptively relaxed, even as two of his men flanked the teenager like prison guards. My wrist still burned where he'd touched me. "Where are we going?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. Marco didn't look at me. "Mr. Moretti will explain. I didn't do anything wrong. I was just helping. You don't help anyone on these streets without asking questions first." His tone was flat, matter of fact. "Especially not when you work for him." The weight of those words settled over me like a shroud. "When you work for him." As if I'd signed away more than just my time when I'd taken this job. As if every action, every choice, belonged to someone else now. I pressed my palms against my thighs, trying to stop them from shaking. Through the window, I saw Dante pull out his phone, speak into it briefly, then turn toward the SUV. Even from this distance, even through tinted glass, I felt the weight of his gaze. He moved toward us with that same measured stride, and the door opened. He slid in beside me, the space suddenly too small, too warm. His cologne filled my lungs, cedar and smoke and something darker I couldn't name. "Drive," he said quietly. The SUV pulled into traffic. I kept my eyes forward, hyper-aware of the heat radiating from his body barely inches from mine. In the confined space, I could hear his breathing, steady and controlled. "The boy," I started, "is being taken care of. What does that mean?" I turned to face him, fear giving me courage I didn't know I had. "You're not going to—" "He didn't do anything. He approached you." Dante's voice was soft, dangerous. "Outside my building, after you left my home. Do you understand what that looks like, Emma?" The way he said my name, intimate, possessive, made my stomach clench. "It looks like a hungry kid asking for help," I said. His jaw tightened. "It looks like a setup. It looks like someone sending a message. It looks like 20 different things that could get you killed, and you're too naive to see any of them." "I'm not naive. I'm just not paranoid." Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, maybe, or respect. "In my world, paranoia keeps you breathing." The SUV turned onto Lakeshore Drive, the city lights blurring past. This wasn't the route to my apartment in the South Side. My pulse quickened. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere we can talk. I need to get home. My mother has a nurse with her until 9 p.m. I'm aware of your mother's condition, Emma. Lymphoma, stage 3. She has appointments every Tuesday and Thursday at Northwestern Memorial." The blood drained from my face. "How do you—" "I know everything about the people who work in my home." He finally looked at me, and the intensity in his dark eyes pinned me in place. "Your mother, Helen Chen, 56 years old. Widowed 8 years ago when your father died in a construction accident. You dropped out of community college to care for her. You work 3 jobs, my home during the day, a diner on weekends, and you clean offices on Tuesday nights. You send her 70% of what you earn. The rest barely covers your rent and food." I felt stripped bare, exposed. "You investigated me? I investigate everyone." He leaned back against the seat, but there was nothing relaxed about him. Every line of his body hummed with controlled tension. "Your building has broken locks on 2 entrances. Your neighborhood has had 4 armed robberies in the last month. You walk home alone at 11 p.m. after your office shifts. So you're reckless with your own safety." His voice dropped lower, something almost angry threading through it. "And now you're helping strange men on the street. Do you have any sense of self-preservation?" He was a kid. He was a variable, an unknown. Dante's hand moved, and I flinched involuntarily. He froze, his expression shifting to something I couldn't read. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. "I'm not going to hurt you, Emma. Then what are you going to do?" The SUV pulled to a stop. I looked out the window and felt my breath catch. We were at Navy Pier, but not the tourist entrance. A private dock stretched before us, and a yacht, massive, gleaming white, was moored at the end. "We're going to have a conversation," Dante said, "about your future employment and about why you can't be this careless anymore." Marco opened the door, and Dante stepped out, then turned back to offer me his hand. I stared at it. Strong, scarred across the knuckles, a silver ring on his right hand that caught the light. "I can refuse. I said, even though my voice shook. You can. His eyes held mine. But your mother has a specialist appointment next week that your insurance won't cover. $6,000. I can make that problem disappear. My chest tightened. You're blackmailing me? I'm offering you a solution. He kept his hand extended. Come aboard. Have dinner. Listen to what I have to say, then decide. Every instinct screamed at me to run. To get out of this car, call a cab I couldn't afford, and flee back to my small, safe, ordinary life where mob bosses didn't know my mother's treatment schedule and SUVs didn't appear out of nowhere. But $6,000, the surgery she needed, the chance at more time. I took his hand. His fingers closed around mine, warm, firm, and he helped me from the car with a gentleness that felt at odds with everything I knew about him. Marco and the other guards formed a perimeter as we walked down the dock, and I noticed how Dante's thumb brushed against my knuckles, a touch so light I might have imagined it. The yacht was obscene in its luxury. Polished wood and brass fittings, soft lighting that made everything glow golden. A crew member, young, professional, clearly terrified of his employer, greeted us and gestured toward the upper deck. I thought we were having dinner, I said, as Dante guided me up a staircase. We are. The upper deck had been transformed into something from a magazine, a table set for two, covered in white linen, candles flickering in glass hurricanes. The Chicago skyline spread before us like a jeweled tapestry, and the sound of water lapping against the hull created a rhythm that should have been soothing, but only made me more anxious. Sit, Dante said, pulling out a chair. I sat because my legs wouldn't hold me anymore. He took the seat across from me, and a server appeared with wine, pouring without being asked. When we were alone again, Dante leaned back and studied me with that unsettling focus. You're afraid of me, he observed. Should I be? Most people are. He lifted his wine glass, the candlelight catching in the dark liquid. But you helped that boy anyway, even knowing I might see, even knowing there could be consequences. I didn't think... No, you didn't. He took a sip, his eyes never leaving mine. That's what concerns me, Emma. You don't think about consequences. You just act. Is that why I'm here? So you can lecture me about being too kind? Something almost like a smile touched his mouth. Almost. You have spirit. I wondered if you did, beneath all that careful invisibility. My cheeks burned. I don't know what you mean. You make yourself small, quiet. You think if you're good enough, invisible enough, nothing bad will happen. He set down his glass. But I see you. I've seen you from the first day you walked into my home. The admission made my breath catch. Why? Because you don't belong there. His voice was soft, almost regretful. You're too soft for that world, too good. And yet here you are, working yourself to exhaustion, destroying your hands scrubbing floors for a man you're terrified of, all to save someone you love. Tears pricked at my eyes. I blinked them back furiously. What do you want from me? I want you to understand something. Dante leaned forward, his intensity radiating across the table. That boy tonight, his name is Marcus Webb, 16 years old. He's been on the streets for 8 months. And 3 days ago, he was approached by someone who offered him $500 to wait outside my building and make contact with a young woman matching your description. My blood ran cold. What? Someone is watching you, Emma. Someone knows you work for me, and they're trying to use you to get to me. The food arrived, plates of pasta and vegetables that looked like art, but I couldn't have eaten if my life depended on it. Why would anyone... I'm nobody. You're someone who has access to my home, my private spaces. His fingers drummed against the table, a rare show of agitation. Someone who could plant a device, let in an intruder, poison my food. The possibilities are endless, and you've been there for 3 months, long enough to be trusted, long enough to be vulnerable, but I would never... I know that. The certainty in his voice surprised me. I've been watching you, Emma, the way you work, the way you live. You're loyal to a fault, honest, incorruptible, even when it costs you. He paused. That's rare. In my world, That's almost impossible. Then why am I here? Because someone else doesn't know that. Someone thinks they can use you, and I need to make sure that doesn't happen. Fear coiled in my stomach. What does that mean? Dante stood, moving around the table with predatory grace. He stopped beside my chair, and I had to tilt my head back to look at him. The wind off the lake ruffled his dark hair, and the city lights behind him turned him into a silhouette. Powerful, dangerous, inescapable. It means you don't go back to your apartment. Not tonight. Not until I know who's behind this. You can't. I can. His hand came to rest on the back of my chair, not touching me, but close enough that I felt the heat of him. And I will. Your mother is being moved to a private facility as we speak. Comfortable, safe, with round-the-clock care. You'll be staying in the guest wing of my home where I can protect you. Protect me or imprison me? The words came out bitter, angry. His eyes flashed. If I wanted to imprison you, Emma, you'd already be in chains. The way he said it, low, dangerous, with an undercurrent of something I didn't want to name, sent a shiver down my spine. I have rights, I said, hating how my voice wavered. You can't just... I'm trying to keep you alive. He crouched beside my chair, bringing his face level with mine, and I could see every detail. The scar above his left eyebrow, the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, the sharp line of his jaw. Someone wants to hurt you to get to me. Do you understand what that means? The things they would do to you? The ways they would make you suffer before they killed you? I couldn't breathe. Why do you care? The question hung between us. His hand came up slowly, giving me time to pull away, and his fingers brushed my cheek with devastating gentleness. I don't know, he said quietly. But I do. I didn't sleep that night. The guest wing of Dante's penthouse was larger than my entire apartment. A bedroom with a king-sized bed that felt like floating on clouds, a bathroom with marble everything, and a shower that had more settings than my car back when I'd owned one. A sitting area with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city I'd lived in my whole life, but suddenly felt like a stranger in. I stood at those windows now, watching dawn break over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that seemed too beautiful for how trapped I felt. My mother. They'd taken my mother. Not violently. Dante had shown me the video call on his phone before I'd been brought here. She was in a private room at some facility I'd never heard of, confused but comfortable, with a kind-faced nurse explaining that her daughter had arranged a brief stay for better treatment. She'd looked so small in that big bed, so fragile, and I'd wanted to scream that this wasn't my choice, that I hadn't arranged anything, but Dante's hand had been on my lower back, steady and warm, and his voice in my ear had been soft. She's safe. That's what matters. Safe. The word felt like a cage with velvet bars. I heard the door open behind me and turned to find a woman in her 50s, entering with a garment bag and a professional smile that didn't reach her eyes. Miss Chen. I'm Sophia. Mr. Moretti has asked me to provide you with appropriate clothing. She laid the garment bag on the bed with practiced efficiency. There's breakfast being prepared. He expects you at 8. Expects. Not requests. Not invites. What if I don't want breakfast? The rebellion felt childish even as I said it. Sophia's smile tightened fractionally. Mr. Moretti doesn't appreciate being kept waiting. She left before I could respond, and I was alone again with my anger and fear and the creeping realization that I'd stepped into a world where my wants didn't matter anymore. The garment bag contained clothes that fit perfectly, designer jeans that probably cost more than my monthly rent, a cashmere sweater in deep blue, undergarments that made me flush because someone had known my exact sizes. I dressed mechanically, feeling like a doll being prepared for display. At precisely 8 a.m., there was a knock. Marco stood in the hallway, his expression as unreadable as always. This way, Miss Chen. I followed him through corridors I'd cleaned a dozen times but now felt foreign, like I was seeing them through different eyes. We passed Teresa in the kitchen. She looked at me with something like pity before quickly looking away. And then Marco was opening a door to a private dining room I'd never been allowed to enter. Dante sat at the head of a long mahogany table, reading something on his tablet, a cup of coffee steaming at his elbow. He wore a white dress shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, and the morning light through the windows turned his dark hair almost blue-black. He looked up as I entered, and something in his expression softened. Emma, come, sit. I remained standing. I want to see my mother. After breakfast. Now. His eyes narrowed slightly. Sit down. The command in his voice made my knees weak, but I forced myself to stay upright. You can't just... I can. He set down his tablet with deliberate care. And I have. Now you can choose to be reasonable about this, or you can choose to be difficult, but the outcome remains the same. You will sit, you will eat, and then we will discuss the situation like adults. Adults don't kidnap people. I didn't kidnap you. I relocated you for your own safety. He stood, moving around the table with that predatory grace. There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. You're angry. I understand that. But your anger doesn't change reality. Someone tried to use you last night. Someone who knows enough about my organization to know you work here, to know your schedule, to know you're kind enough to help a desperate teenager. His voice dropped lower. And that someone won't stop just because you're upset with me. The logic was infuriating because it made sense. I wanted to rage against it, to storm out, to reclaim the illusion of control I'd had yesterday. But yesterday I'd been ignorant. Today I knew there were eyes watching me, hands reaching for me, dangers I'd never imagined. Who? I asked quietly. Who wants to hurt me? I don't know yet, but I will. Something dark flickered across his face. And when I do, they'll regret ever learning your name. The possessiveness in his tone sent a shiver through me. Why do you care so much? I'm just your maid. You stopped being just my maid the moment I decided you were mine to protect. The word mine hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. I should have been terrified. I was terrified. But underneath the fear was something else. Something traitorous and foolish that responded to the absolute certainty in his voice. I'm not yours, I whispered. His hand came up, slowly, and his fingers traced my jawline with devastating gentleness. Not yet. My breath caught. This is insane. Yes. His thumb brushed across my lower lip, and my entire body went electric. But you're still here. You could have screamed for help last night, could have fought Marco, could have called the police from this room. I left you a phone deliberately. His eyes searched mine, but you didn't. Do you know why? Because you have my mother, I said, hating how weak my voice sounded. No. He leaned closer, his breath warm against my skin. Because some part of you knows I'm the only one who can keep you safe. Because you're smart enough to recognize that, whatever I am, I'm better than whatever is waiting for you out there. He was right, and I hated him for it. Sit, he said again, softer now. Please. The please broke something in me. I sat. Breakfast was brought in by staff I didn't recognize. Not Teresa. Not any of the usual people. Dante noticed my confusion. I've brought in a new security team. No one who was here yesterday has access today until we identify the leak. You think someone who works for you? I think everyone is suspect until proven otherwise. He poured coffee into my cup with practiced ease. That's how you survive in this business, Emma. Trust no one completely. Question everything. That sounds exhausting. It is. Something almost vulnerable flickered in his eyes. It's also necessary. We ate in silence for a while. The food was exceptional. Eggs perfectly cooked, pastries that melted on my tongue, fresh fruit that tasted like summer. But I barely noticed. My mind was racing, trying to find an angle, a way out, something that would let me reclaim my life. The boy, I said finally. Marcus. What happened to him? He's being questioned. You mean tortured? Dante's expression didn't change. I mean questioned. I'm not a monster, Emma, despite what you might think. He's a kid who made a stupid choice. He'll give us what we need, and then he'll be released with enough money to get off the streets if he's smart about it. And if he doesn't tell you what you want to hear, then we'll reassess. He met my gaze steadily, but I don't think it will come to that. He's already told us the man who approached him was mid-40s, dark hair, spoke with a slight accent, possibly Eastern European, drove a BMW, paid half up front, promised the rest after contact was made. My stomach churned. Eastern European. Do you know who? I have suspicions. His jaw tightened. Viktor Kozlov. He runs territory on the north side. We've had disagreements lately. Disagreements about what? Business. The word was clipped. Final. Nothing you need to worry about. If someone wants to use me because of it, then yes, I do need to worry about it. He set down his fork with deliberate control. Victor's been pushing into shipping routes I control. He's ambitious, violent, and stupid. A dangerous combination. 3 months ago, one of his men tried to shake down a restaurant under my protection. I sent a message. He didn't like it. What kind of message? Dante's smile was cold, the permanent kind. I felt sick. You killed someone. I protected what's mine. No apology, no justification, just fact. This is the world I live in, Emma. Violence, territory, respect maintained through fear. You wanted the truth? There it is. I pushed my plate away, appetite gone. I don't belong here. No. He agreed quietly. You don't. You belong somewhere safe, somewhere good, somewhere far away from men like me. He leaned back, studying me with those dark, unreadable eyes. But life doesn't give us what we deserve. It gives us what we can take and what we can hold on to. Is that what this is? You're holding on to me? I'm protecting you. They're not the same thing. In my world, they are. He stood, moving to the windows. With his back to me, silhouetted against the Chicago skyline, he looked lonely somehow, untouchable. I've spent 15 years building this empire. 15 years making myself into someone people fear, someone people respect. I've done things that would make you sick. Hurt people. Destroyed lives. Taken what I wanted because I was strong enough to take it. He turned back to face me, and the intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. And then you walked into my home with your red hands and your tired eyes, and your absolute refusal to see the danger right in front of you. And he stopped, jaw clenching. I don't know what to do with you. Let me go, I whispered. I can't. You mean you won't? I mean if I let you go, Victor will take you. And what he'll do to you. His hands clenched into fists. I've seen his work, Emma. I've cleaned up his messes. He doesn't just kill. He makes people suffer first, makes them beg. And he'd do it to you just to hurt me, just to prove he can. Tears burned in my eyes. This isn't fair. No. He crossed the distance between us, crouching beside my chair the way he had last night. But I'm going to end this. I'm going to find Victor, and I'm going to make sure he never thinks of you again. And then what? His hand came up, cupping my face, and the gentleness of the touch contrasted so sharply with the violence in his words that I felt dizzy. Then you can choose. Stay or go. I won't force you. You're forcing me now. I'm saving your life now. His thumb brushed away a tear that had escaped. Hate me for it if you want, but live. The door burst open, and Marco rushed in with an urgency I'd never seen from him. Sir, we have a problem. And Dante was on his feet instantly, his whole demeanor shifting from intimate to lethal in a heartbeat. What? Victor's made a move. The shipping warehouse on Ashland. It's on fire. 3 of our men are dead. The color drained from my face. Dead. Because of territory disputes and business disagreements, in a world I'd never wanted to be part of. Dante's expression went arctic. Get everyone mobilized. I want Victor's location within the hour. He turned to me, and despite the fury in his eyes, his voice was gentle. Emma, go back to your room. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me or Marco. Do you understand? I nodded, too shocked to do anything else. Say it. I understand. He leaned down, and for one breathless moment I thought he was going to kiss me. Instead, his lips brushed my forehead, a gesture so tender it made my chest ache. I'll keep you safe, he murmured against my skin, whatever it takes. Then he was gone, Marco at his heels, and I was alone in the dining room with cold coffee and the dawning realization that I'd somehow become a piece in a game I didn't understand, played by men who saw violence as currency and lives as collateral. And the most terrifying part, some broken, foolish part of me believed him when he said he'd protect me. Even knowing what he was, even knowing what it would cost, the hours crawled by like wounded animals. I paced the guest room, my mind unable to settle, replaying Dante's words over and over. 3 men dead, a warehouse burning, Victor making moves, and me trapped in the center of it all like a rabbit caught between wolves. The phone Dante had mentioned sat on the nightstand, sleek, black, expensive. I picked it up with shaking hands. I could call the police, report everything. Let them sort out this nightmare of mobsters and territory wars and whatever twisted protection Dante thought he was offering. But then what? Victor would still be out there. The threat wouldn't disappear just because I involved authorities who were probably on someone's payroll anyway. And my mother... God. My mother was in some facility I didn't even know the location of, dependent on Dante's goodwill for her care. I was trapped. Completely, utterly trapped. A soft knock made me jump. "Miss Chen?" A woman's voice, unfamiliar. "I'm Dr. Reeves. Mr. Moretti asked me to check on you." I opened the door cautiously to find a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a medical bag. Behind her, one of the new security guards stood at attention. "I don't need a doctor. Humor me." She smiled gently. "May I come in?" I stepped back, and she entered with professional efficiency, setting her bag on the table. "I'm just going to check your vitals, make sure the stress isn't affecting you physically. Mr. Moretti is very concerned about your well-being." "Mr. Moretti has a funny way of showing concern," I muttered. Dr. Reeves's expression remained neutral as she wrapped a blood pressure cuff around my arm. "I've worked with Mr. Moretti for 5 years. I've never seen him this protective of anyone." "You mean possessive? Perhaps." She pumped the cuff, watching the gauge. "But in this world, those things often overlap. Your blood pressure is elevated, but not dangerously so. Have you been sleeping? Would you be able to sleep? Probably not." She removed the cuff, then pulled out a prescription pad. "I'm going to leave you something mild for anxiety if you want it. No pressure. And sleeping pills. Though I'd prefer you not take them unless absolutely necessary." "Why?" "Afraid I'll overdose and ruin Dante's plans." Her eyes met mine, sharp and assessing. "Afraid you'll be vulnerable if there's an emergency. This building is a fortress, but nothing is completely safe. You need to be able to wake up and run if necessary." The casual way she said it made my blood run cold. Has that happened before? Once. She packed up her bag. 3 years ago. An attempted breach. It didn't end well for the attackers. She paused at the door. "Miss Chen? Whatever you think of Mr. Moretti, whatever judgment you've made about his methods, he will die before he lets anyone hurt you. I've seen a lot of things in this job. A lot of darkness. But I've never seen him care about someone the way he clearly cares about you. Make of that what you will." She left, and I was alone again with my spiraling thoughts. The afternoon bled into evening. Teresa brought food that I picked at without tasting. The city lights came on outside my windows, turning Chicago into a glittering cage. I tried to read, to watch television, to do anything that would quiet my mind, but nothing worked. At 9 p.m., the door opened without warning. Dante stood in the threshold, and my heart stopped. His white shirt was stained with soot and something darker that might have been blood. His face was streaked with grime, his hair disheveled, and his eyes burned with an intensity that made me take an involuntary step back. "Are you hurt?" The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Something in his expression softened. "No, the blood isn't mine." "Victor." "Dead," he said it flatly without emotion, "along with 6 of his men, the rest scattered." I sank onto the edge of the bed, my legs suddenly unable to hold me. "You killed him." I ended the threat. He moved into the room, closing the door behind him. "It's over, Emma. You're safe now." Safe. The word tasted like ashes. How many people died tonight because of me? Because of Victor's ambition. Because of his stupidity. Dante's voice was rough, exhausted. Not because of you. Never because of you. I don't understand any of this. I looked up at him, tears burning in my eyes. I was nobody. I am nobody. Why do you? He crossed the distance between us and dropped to his knees in front of me, bringing his face level with mine. The vulnerability in the gesture shocked me into silence. "I saw you the first day you started working here," he said quietly. "You were in the kitchen, talking to Teresa. You just learned about your mother's diagnosis, though you didn't tell anyone. But I could see it in your eyes, the fear, the determination. You were breaking apart inside, and you just kept smiling, kept working, kept pretending everything was fine. His hand came up, hesitant, and when I didn't pull away, he cupped my face with a gentleness that made my chest ache. I've spent my whole life around people who lie, who manipulate, who wear masks so thick you can't see what's underneath. But you... His voice cracked slightly. You wear everything on your face. Every emotion, every fear, every moment of kindness, even when it costs you. You're real in a way I'd forgotten people could be. That doesn't explain. I'm obsessed with you. The words came out raw, honest. I know it's wrong. I know I have no right to feel this way about someone who works for me, someone who's good and kind, and deserves so much better than a man with blood on his hands. But I can't stop. I tried. God, Emma, I tried to stay away, to keep my distance, to just let you be another employee. But every day you'd come in with your tired eyes and your gentle hands and your absolute refusal to complain about anything. And he stopped, jaw clenching. When I saw you with that boy last night, when I thought someone had gotten to you, that they were using you to hurt me, I've never been that afraid in my life. And I've faced down men with guns, knives, threats that would make most people crumble, but the thought of losing you, of something happening to you because of me. Stop. I pressed my fingers against his lips, unable to listen anymore. Just stop. We sat there in the dimness, his face still cupped in my hands, his eyes searching mine for something I wasn't sure I could give him. I should hate you, I whispered. You've taken my choices, moved my mother, turned my life upside down. I should hate you. But you don't. It wasn't a question. I don't know what I feel. It was the most honest thing I'd said all day. You terrify me. But you also. When you look at me like that, when you touch me like I'm something precious, instead of just another possession. You're not a possession. Then what am I? His other hand came up, framing my face, and the intensity in his gaze made me feel stripped bare. You're the first real thing I've wanted in 15 years, the first person who makes me want to be something other than what I am. The first. He stopped, seeming to struggle with words. You're everything I didn't know I needed until I saw you breaking yourself apart to save someone else. I'm not special. I'm just... You're extraordinary. He said it with such certainty that I almost believed him. And I know I don't deserve you. I know what I am, what I've done. But I'm a selfish man, Emma, and now that I've decided you're mine, I can't let you go. That's not love. That's obsession. I never said it was love. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. Love is soft. Love is kind. This, what I feel for you, it's darker than that. Hungrier. I want to lock you away where nothing can touch you. I want to destroy anyone who looks at you wrong. I want to own every smile, every laugh, every tear. His honesty should have terrified me. It did terrify me. But it was also the first truly honest thing anyone had said to me in months. And what if I don't want to be owned? Then I'll learn to live with the wanting. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. But I'll still protect you, still keep you safe, still watch from the shadows, and make sure nothing ever hurts you again. Because that's what you do when you find something precious in a world full of darkness. You guard it with everything you have. A tear slipped down my cheek, and he caught it with his thumb, his expression anguished. Don't cry. Please don't cry. I don't know what to do, I admitted, the words breaking out of me. I don't know how to process any of this. You've turned everything I thought I knew upside down, and I can't think straight when you're this close. When you look at me like that, then don't think. He leaned forward slowly, giving me every opportunity to pull away. Just feel. His lips brushed against mine, soft as a whisper, asking permission. And despite everything, the violence, the control, the absolute insanity of this situation, I found myself leaning into him, answering that question with one of my own. The kiss deepened, his hands sliding into my hair, tilting my head back as he claimed my mouth with a hunger that made my toes curl. He tasted like smoke and mint, and something indefinably him, and when his tongue swept against mine, I heard myself make a sound that should have embarrassed me, but only seemed to inflame him further. He pulled me closer, off the bed and into his lap as he settled back on his heels, arranging me so I was straddling him, pressed against him in a way that made me acutely aware of every hard plane of his body. His hands roamed my back, my sides, possessive and reverent all at once. "Emma," he breathed against my mouth. "Tell me to stop. I can't. Tell me you don't want this. I can't do that either," he groaned, his forehead resting against mine. "You're killing me." "Good." I didn't know where the boldness came from, but suddenly I was pulling his face back to mine, kissing him with all the confusion and fear and inexplicable desire that had been building since the moment he'd touched my wrist last night. "You've been killing me slowly for months, watching me like you're trying to solve a puzzle. Now you know how it feels." His laugh was dark, pleased. "You noticed." How could I not? I pulled back enough to look at him, this dangerous man with blood on his shirt and tenderness in his eyes. "You made me feel like I was on fire every time you walked into a room. And now? Now I'm terrified that I'm the moth, and you're the flame, and I'm going to get burned. Then we'll burn together." He kissed me again, slower this time, deeper, until I was drowning in sensation and couldn't remember why I'd been afraid. His hands found the hem of my sweater, his fingers brushing against bare skin, and I gasped at the contact. "I need to shower," he murmured against my throat. "I'm covered in—" "I don't care. I do. You deserve better than—" He stopped as I grabbed his face, forcing him to look at me. "If you're trying to convince me you're a good man, it's not working." His smile was sharp, dangerous. "Good. Because I'm not a good man, Emma. I'm a monster who's decided to keep something beautiful, and God help anyone who tries to take you from me." He stood in one fluid motion, lifting me with him like I weighed nothing. I wrapped my legs around his waist instinctively, my arms circling his neck, and he carried me toward the bathroom. "What are you doing?" "Making sure you understand exactly what you're getting into." His eyes met mine, dark with promise. "Last chance to run, little dove. Because once we cross this line, I'm never letting you go." I should have been terrified, should have demanded he put me down, should have locked myself in this room and refused to come out until he agreed to let me leave. Instead, I kissed him again, pouring every complicated emotion into it. The fear and the desire and the reckless, foolish hope that maybe, just maybe, I could be the one who tamed the monster. "Then don't let go," I whispered against his lips, and as he kicked the bathroom door closed behind us, as his hands found my skin and his mouth mapped territories I'd never let anyone claim before, I realized I'd just made the most dangerous choice of my life, but I couldn't bring myself to regret it. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the weight of an arm draped across my waist. For a moment, I didn't remember. Then it all came rushing back. The shower that had turned into something desperate and hungry. The way Dante had carried me to his bed afterward. The hours we'd spent learning each other's bodies with a thoroughness that made me blush even now. The way he'd whispered my name like a prayer and a curse all at once. I turned my head carefully. He was still asleep beside me. His face relaxed in a way I'd never seen while he was awake. Without the cold mask he wore for the world, he looked younger, almost vulnerable. Dark lashes against sharp cheekbones, lips slightly parted. One hand still possessively curved around my hip even in sleep. A monster, he'd called himself. But monsters didn't hold you like you were something precious. Monsters didn't trace your scars and kiss them like they could heal old wounds. His eyes opened, instantly alert, and I realized he probably never truly slept deeply, always on guard, always ready. "Morning," I whispered. Something soft moved across his face. "You're still here. Where else would I be?" "Running." His hand tightened on my hip, screaming, calling the police. "Any rational response to what happened last night?" "Maybe I'm not rational. Or maybe you're exactly what I thought you were." He pulled me closer, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "Too kind for your own good. Is that what this is? Kindness?" "I don't know what this is." His honesty surprised me. I've never felt this before. We lay there in comfortable silence, And I tried to reconcile the man who'd killed Victor last night with the one who held me now like I might disappear. Both were real. Both were Dante. And somehow, impossibly, I was beginning to accept that. My mother, I said finally. I need to see her. Today. He sat up, the sheets pooling around his waist, and I tried not to stare at the expanse of his back. Scarred, muscled, telling stories I wasn't sure I wanted to know. I'll take you myself. Really? He looked back at me over his shoulder, something almost amused in his expression. Did you think I'd keep you from her? I didn't know what to think. Emma. He turned fully, framing my face with his hands. I'm not trying to erase your life. I'm trying to protect it. There's a difference. And if I wanted to go back to my apartment, back to my jobs? His jaw tightened. The apartment isn't safe. Not yet. We're still identifying everyone who was connected to Victor, making sure there are no loose ends. But your jobs? He paused. You don't need them anymore. You can't just... I can provide for you. For your mother. Better care than you could ever afford on 3 salaries. His thumb brushed my lower lip. Let me take care of you. That's not... I can't just be kept like some... You won't be kept. His voice was firm. You'll be protected. Provided for. Free to do whatever you want with your time. Go back to school. Pursue interests you've had to sacrifice. The only condition is that you stay safe. And stay with you. Yes. No apology, no hedging. I told you last night, I'm a selfish man. Now that I have you, I'm not letting go. I should have argued. Should have insisted on my independence, my right to make my own choices. But the truth was, I was exhausted. Exhausted from working myself to the bone, from watching my mother fade, from being invisible and expendable and alone. What would I even do? I asked quietly. I dropped out of college. I don't have skills beyond cleaning and serving food. You're intelligent, creative, kind in a world that tries to beat kindness out of people. He kissed me softly. You'll figure it out. And I'll be here while you do. There was a knock at the door. Sir? Miss Chen's mother is ready for her visit. Dante's expression shifted instantly from intimate to commanding. Give us 10 minutes. We dressed in silence, me in clothes that had appeared in the closet overnight, perfectly sized, and Dante in a fresh suit that transformed him back into the dangerous man the world knew. But now I'd seen what was underneath. The vulnerability, the hunger, the obsessive need to protect what he'd claimed as his. The car ride was quiet. Marco driving with his usual silent efficiency, while Dante worked on his tablet beside me, his free hand never leaving my thigh. The facility my mother was in turned out to be in Lincoln Park, exclusive, beautiful, the kind of place I'd only ever seen in magazines. Mr. Moretti. A doctor met us at the entrance, professional but clearly deferential. Mrs. Chen is doing well. We've run a full panel of tests, and I'd like to discuss treatment options with you and Miss Chen. Options? I looked between them, confused. The doctor smiled. There's a new trial therapy that your mother is an excellent candidate for. Very promising results in early-stage testing. We've already expedited her application. I can't afford... It's covered, Dante said quietly. All of it. My eyes burned with tears. Why? Because she's important to you. He said it like it was obvious. That makes her important to me. My mother was in a suite that looked more like a hotel room than a hospital. She was sitting up in bed, reading, and her face lit up when she saw me. Emma. Oh, sweetheart. She set down her book, and I rushed to embrace her, breathing in the familiar scent of her lavender lotion. They told me you arranged all this. I don't understand. How can we afford? Don't worry about that, Mom. I pulled back, studying her face. She looked better than she had in months. Color in her cheeks, clarity in her eyes. Just focus on getting well. Her gaze moved past me to Dante, standing in the doorway with his usual predatory stillness. And who is this? I'm Dante Moretti, Mrs. Chen. Emma works for me. He moved forward, offering his hand with surprising gentility. It's a pleasure to meet you. My mother shook his hand, her eyes sharp despite her illness. Moretti. I know that name. Mom? You're the one who's been helping my daughter. She studied him with a mother's scrutiny. Why? Because she deserves help. His answer was simple, honest. And because I care about her well-being. Something passed across my mother's face. Understanding, maybe, or concern, but when she looked at me, her expression softened. You look different, sweetheart. Lighter somehow. I'm okay, Mom. Better than okay. We spent an hour with her, Dante excusing himself after 30 minutes to give us privacy. My mother waited until he was gone before gripping my hand. Emma? That man. Do you know what he is? Yes. And you're involved with him anyway? I met her eyes steadily. Yes. She was quiet for a long moment. Your father would have hated this, I know. But your father isn't here, and Her voice cracked slightly. I'm not going to be here much longer, no matter what fancy treatments they try. So I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to really hear me. Mom, listen. She squeezed my hand. I've watched you destroy yourself trying to save me. 3 jobs, no sleep, no life of your own. You think I didn't know? You think I didn't see you crying in the bathroom when you thought I was asleep? Tears spilled down my cheeks. I wanted to help, and you did. More than any daughter should have to. She reached up, wiping my tears with her thumb. But now someone wants to help you. And maybe he's dangerous. Maybe he's everything I raised you to stay away from. But when he looks at you, Emma, I've never seen anyone look at someone the way he looks at you. Like you're the only thing in the world that matters. He's possessive, controlling, he's protective. There's a difference. She smiled sadly, and sometimes the strongest cages are the ones we choose to walk into. You're telling me to stay with him? I'm telling you to choose happiness while you can. Life is too short and too hard to reject something real just because it's complicated. She leaned back against her pillows, exhausted from even this brief conversation. Promise me something? Anything. Live, Emma. Really live. Not just survive. Not just sacrifice. Live. I kissed her forehead, my tears wetting her skin. I promise. When I emerged, Dante was waiting in the hallway, and he took one look at my face before pulling me into his arms. I buried my face in his chest, breathing in his scent, letting him hold me while I fell apart. She's dying, I whispered against his shirt. I know. His arms tightened. I'm sorry. The treatment will buy time. Maybe months, maybe a year. But yes, Emma, eventually. He didn't finish, didn't need to. I pulled back, looking up at him through blurred vision. Why are you doing all this? Because I can. Because you shouldn't have to face this alone. He cupped my face, his touch infinitely gentle. Because when I look at you, I see something I thought I'd lost the ability to see. Goodness. Hope. Something worth protecting in a world that's tried to make me forget those things exist. I'm not that special. You are to me. He kissed me softly, and that's all that matters. The drive back was quiet, my head on his shoulder, his arm around me. When we reached the penthouse, he led me not to the guest wing, but to his private quarters. Our quarters now, I supposed. What happens now? I asked as we stood in the bedroom where we'd come together last night. Now you heal, you grieve, you figure out what you want your life to look like. He pulled me close, his chin resting on top of my head. And I stay close enough to catch you if you fall. And if I want to leave someday, his arms tightened fractionally. Then I'll hate it. I'll probably make it difficult, but I won't force you to stay. I meant what I said, Emma. I want you to choose this. Choose me. Not because you're afraid or trapped, but because you want to. I do want to. The admission came easier than I'd expected. I don't understand it. I should be terrified of you. You should be. But I'm not. Or maybe I am, but I pulled back to look at him. You make me feel safe. Even though you're the most dangerous thing in my life, you make me feel safer than I've felt in years. How does that make sense? It doesn't. His smile was crooked, almost boyish. But neither does any of this. A mob boss falls for his maid. A girl too kind for this world chooses the monster. We're writing our own story, Emma. Who says it has to make sense? I laughed despite everything. The tears, the fear, the absolute insanity of the situation. This is crazy. Probably. He kissed me again, slow and deep, but it's ours. And standing there in his arms, with my mother being cared for in a facility I could never have afforded, with a future spreading before me that looked nothing like what I'd planned, but somehow felt more right than anything had in years, I realized I'd stopped fighting. This was my life now. Complicated, dangerous, beautiful in its own dark way. Dante Moretti, crime lord, killer, the man who'd seen me at my most invisible and decided I was worth protecting with everything he had. "I love you," I whispered before I could stop myself. He went absolutely still. "Emma, I know it's too soon. I know it's probably just trauma bonding or Stockholm syndrome or whatever, but I need to say it. I love you. The man who held me last night, the man who paid for my mother's treatment, the monster who killed to keep me safe, all of it. I love all of it." His eyes blazed. "You're going to destroy me. Good." I pulled his face down to mine. "You destroyed my life first. Fair is fair." He laughed, a real laugh, full and unguarded, and kissed me until I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the solid reality of him against me. "I don't know if I can love," he said against my mouth. "I don't know if I'm capable of it anymore. But whatever this is, this need, this obsession, this absolute certainty that I would burn the world down before I'd let anyone hurt you, if that's love, then yes, I love you too. Completely, irrevocably, forever. Forever." The word should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like coming home. Outside the windows, Chicago glittered with possibility. A city full of danger and beauty, light and shadow. Just like us. Just like this strange, dark, perfect thing we were building together. I'd walked into his home 3 months ago, invisible and alone. Now I stood in his arms, seen and claimed and utterly changed. The girl who'd helped a homeless teenager had accidentally stumbled into a mafia boss's life. And somehow, impossibly, we'd become each other's salvation. Not a fairy tale, not simple or easy or safe, but real, true, ours. And that was enough.